To really know what makes a great city work, you have to peel back its skin and expose its secret life force. A system of incredible complexity and technology that millions depend on, but few understand. A fantastic voyage now begins, a journey deep inside the world's mega-cities. Once, it was the capital of the world's greatest empire. Today, London remains a crossroads of the world. Like most megacities, London was built on a river, but it survives because of 3 rivers. On water, on land, and in the air. To survive, London must keep all 3 streams flowing. Yet every minute, in all 3 dimensions, millions of people are on a collision course. To avert disaster, this megacity keeps a sleepless vigil. These are its sentinels. Cameras. Sensors. Radar. London is the most surveilled city on the planet. 24 hours a day, on land and river and in the sky, Big Brother is watching. Heathrow. Gateway to London. No airport on Earth does more with less. 1,400 flights a day. 63 million passengers a year. A control tower more than 55 years old. And the most daunting number of all, 2. Just 2 runways to handle almost 500,000 flights a year. The busiest international airspace in the world. Watching over this frenzy of flight are 100 pairs of eyes. The air traffic controllers. Among them, Adrian Dolan.
We've just got a constant flow of traffic from 6 in the morning till 11 at night. You might think that with the number of aircraft that we handle every day, how on earth do we do it? How do we get all those aeroplanes in and out of the airport? It's actually extremely regimented.
With so little room to maneuver, the choreography and the timing must be perfect. With only 2 runways, Heathrow dedicates 1 to landings and 1 to takeoffs. At most airports, when 2 planes take off in the same direction, the margin of safety between them must be at least 2 minutes. For Heathrow, 2 minutes is too long. They're forced to follow a more complex pattern. By alternating takeoff directions, Heathrow closes the gap, and their performance is legendary. On a sunny day, once wheels leave the tarmac, the next plane follows as quickly as 45 seconds later. That gap is called the Heathrow Minute. The same precise planning controls landings. 30 miles out of Heathrow, inbounds are routed into 4 corkscrew holding patterns called stacks. Planes enter a stack around 15,000 feet. After a series of descending spirals, they exit at 7,000 feet. As one leaves, the rest descend 1 level, and a new plane enters the stack. 10 miles out, planes from all 4 stacks are vectored into a single line for landing. Inbounds glide past outbounds 1,000 feet apart in a synchronized dance, choreographed down to the second.
And that's what it's all about. It's all about maximum tuning all the way down to the very end, very fine tuning. So in that way we can pack as many airplanes into the landing runway as possible. So all we've got to do is just land them, vacate them, constant flow of traffic.
To orchestrate takeoffs and landings takes the tightest of choreography. But thousands of feet above the tarmac, a dance even more complex plays out. To anyone else, these are just blips on a screen. Yet each blip means millions of dollars of machinery and hundreds of lives. If two blips ever touch, disaster. August the 27th, 1997. Another cloudy day in London. A Virgin Express Boeing 737 misses its approach to Heathrow. The tower turns the aircraft onto a northwest heading for reapproach. Unwittingly, on the same flight path as a British Airways 757. In the clouds, neither plane sees the other. Suddenly, the tower catches the mistake and reroutes the planes, but not before they pass within a whisker of each other. A mere 200 feet, a split second from disaster. The fate of every blip in the sky rests with the air traffic controllers, the men and women of ATC.
ATC is the eyes of the City of London. There's always 2 or 3 sets of eyes watching any one plane at the same time.
The best view of Heathrow itself is from the venerable old tower's observation deck. Restricted to ATC controllers, it offers a rare view of Heathrow's sprawling backyard.
We've got this huge city in itself, this airport. It's fantastic. We've got 1 million flights coming in and out of the London area every year. 500,000 of those are using this airport alone. And when you come to work first thing in the morning and you see that string of lights approaching the airport in the sky, and you think about the people all over the world are coming into this city, it's an amazing buzz.
With planes racing in from every point of the compass, the challenge is keeping them apart.
The radar controller's job is often analysed as a kind of three-dimensional game of chess, where you have things moving horizontally, vertically and laterally with speed.
The world's highest stakes game of chess. And this is the chessboard.
Delivery, good morning. It's the shuttle to Juliet, 757 on Alpha 3.
The airspace above London extends from 2,500 feet above the ground to 60,000 feet.
Shuttle to Juliet, climb level 140. Climb level 140, to Juliet.
Horizontally, it covers more than 6,000 square miles. 10 times the area of the city itself. On this three-dimensional highway, aircraft are separated 2 ways, with 5 miles of horizontal distance or 1,000 feet of vertical distance. Below 24,000 feet, the airspace around Heathrow gets so busy, the horizontal gap narrows to just 3 miles. Sound like a lot of space? It's not. Violating this safety gap is the aviation equivalent of tailgating, except it happens much faster. At 500 miles an hour, a plane covers 1 mile in 7 seconds. In the unfriendly skies above this megacity, the rule is, keep your distance.
And our job then is just basically to make sure that the space between those aeroplanes is maintained. If it reduces, we take action.
Shuttle to Juliet, turn left heading 335.
To take action and avert disaster, you need room to maneuver. And Heathrow is using every inch.
We have 1,350 flights in and out of the airport every day. That's 500,000 a year.
To keep a sharper eye on this surging stream of traffic, London needs a whole new point of view before it's too late.
220 knots and leave danger.
To scan the wild blue yonder takes human vision. Yet to keep life flowing throughout this megacity takes thousands of beady little eyes, each with a mind of its own. They train their gaze on London's most treacherous stream of traffic, where the flow can be dammed in the blink of an eye. To keep traffic circulating, London is deploying the highway equivalent of a heart monitor.
In the daytime, well, apparently,
One of the most advanced traffic surveillance systems on Earth. Desmond George heads up the London Traffic Control Centre, the LTCC. From this room, he surveys a sprawling network of roads. 13,000 kilometres of pavement.
That's the equivalent of saying going from London to Washington and back, with a little bit of shopping and sightseeing room as well. I mean, it's a fairly big network we're talking about.
London is circled by Britain's most expensive road and the world's biggest ring road, the 6-lane M25. Every rush hour, the M25 feeds the equivalent of 25 freeway lanes into the city. The equation is simple. More traffic into the same constricted space equals gridlock. Every megacity suffers from traffic, but in London, it's mega-sized. Man-hours lost each week to congestion between 2 and 4 million. Congestion is so bad, London's emergency rooms must sometimes use helicopters to bring in patients, not because of the injuries, because of the traffic. George's job? Keep these vital arteries flowing and avoid a coronary. He does it by keeping his eyes on the road.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there is always someone watching traffic in London and doing something about traffic congestion.
On 80 screens, he gets a real-time view of the streets of London.
We do have 1,200 cameras for the whole of the capital, so it's a lot of eyes that we can look at. And it's all about information coming into the control centre and also information going out.
London has this in common with other major cities. They all keep an eye on traffic. But other cities monitor traffic jams after they've formed. London can predict them, even head them off, thanks to a high-tech prognosticator called the Central Office Management of Integrated Traffic, or COMET.
COMET is the large map display on the screen here, and what that does is gives us an early indication, an early warning of what's happening with congestion.
COMET offers a view never before seen of this mega-city. Congestion is built into the streets of London. From a single Roman road, the network has grown into a tangled web of traffic. But now the solution to congestion is built in too. Embedded in London streets are 3,000 electronic sensors. The sensors detect when a vehicle passes over, then measure the travel time to the next sensor. The average travel time between adjacent sensors is computed and stored hundreds of times a minute. When traffic speed falls below average anywhere on the system, the alert is relayed to the COMET map in the control center. Light blue means congestion has increased up to 10%. Dark blue, up to 50%. Red, more than 50% congested. Gridlock. Green means no congestion. George sees red more often than he'd like. When congestion starts to form, he can immediately alert other drivers. But COMET doesn't just relay bad news. It can fix a traffic jam, even head it off.
A team here are monitoring North London today. What they're doing is dealing with traffic congestion as they need to.
As the volume of traffic increases, the road sensors relay the data to the control center. George's team can adjust traffic flow by manipulating more than 2,500 computer-controlled traffic lights.
Changing some of the signal timings of the traffic lights there will be one of the things they'll be looking at doing straight away.
At the touch of a button, nearly 3,000 signals change. Suddenly, London can breathe again. But sometimes George's team does nothing. The problem solves itself, with an assist from new technology. About a quarter of London's traffic lights are smart lights. They constantly track traffic data at their intersections and automatically reset their timing for ideal flow. Traffic lights with brains.
We can't beat congestion. We can only do the best to mitigate against the effects. So that's going to be the key to us, is to keep that rolling.
To keep traffic rolling, this megacity relies on more than cameras and sensors, and traffic lights with a mind of their own. The worst congestion lies at the very heart of the city. There, the volume of traffic exceeds the capacity of the streets. The solution? Not improving flow, but subtracting cars. Today, motorists in central London are travelling through another dimension. A dimension not just of space and of time, but of cash. A toll zone. Without toll booths. There's a signpost up ahead. Next stop, the congestion charge zone. 21 square kilometres of the most crucial driving space in the heart of London. Don't even think of entering if you haven't paid. That's the premise of the congestion charge zone. Reduce crowding by hitting motorists where it hurts. In the wallet. To enter the zone costs £5 a day. But with 250,000 vehicles entering each day, how do you keep track of who paid and who's cheating? As always in London, you need eyes. The zone is surveyed at 174 entry points, each armed with 2 cameras. When a vehicle passes, one camera records the license plate and one the background. With vehicles making multiple trips in and out, the cameras take 1 million pictures a day. Now comes the hard part. Looking at all those pictures and finding the freeloaders. It happens at a secret location in East London, where outside cameras seldom pry, and the technology of surveillance is locked away.
This is the environment we call the cage. This is our main data store. This is where we have all our processors through all the computers, through all the camera sites, throughout the charging zone.
John Mason heads up enforcement for the congestion charge zone. This is the one place in London free of traffic.
This is our video matrix. We have a fibre feed from every single camera site for the charging zone, and those feeds are fed into this matrix. From here, a coax cable takes the data and sends it to one of those number plate recognition systems.
The plate readers, not the cameras, are the true brains of the outfit. In real time, they actually read the plates as numbers and letters, not just as pictures, and sort out the legal drivers from the cheaters. The technology is so good, you can take it to court.
What is important here is that the evidence can't be tampered with, so we have high levels of evidential integrity, which is essential if we use the images for enforcement purposes.
Enforcement is stiff. The fine for not paying the £5 congestion charge, £100. Yet the congestion charge is a lifesaver. Every year, traffic accidents injure or kill 6,000 Londoners. The financial cost, £2.5 billion. By easing the crush of traffic, Mason's electronic eyes have reduced serious accidents by nearly 10% and jump-started the flow of life in the heart of London.
Before congestion charging began, traffic was basically grinding to a standstill. Since congestion charging came into force, traffic within the charging zone has reduced between 20 and 30%. That's had a significant impact on people's ability to go about their business, to travel through the zone, and also for businesses to deliver and get crucially to where they need to be.
Mason's congestion cameras aren't the only lookouts on the streets of this megacity. Other eyes watch the flow of human traffic, alert to a different and more dangerous kind of lawbreaker. London has more pedestrian surveillance cameras than any city on Earth. One for every 14 residents. You can't walk from Piccadilly Circus to Trafalgar Square without being followed. Not to pry, but to protect. They're electronic guardian angels watching your back. Like any set of eyes, the cameras relay their images to an optical nerve center. This one, buried deep beneath the streets they observe. From offices across London, the closed-circuit TV control center connects to 500,000 street cameras. In this room alone in the heart of the city, Nigel Manmahan monitors more than 100 screens, keeping an eye peeled for the bad guys.
You could be parked up in traffic and then all of a sudden this person walks past you and all of a sudden blam, he's walked up, he's popped the back glass and he's doing it. It can go from that. We haven't had much carjackings up here, but you do get carjackings from time to time. We usually clock them in the range of about 700 incidents a month through this control room.
Nigel is trained to read body language, and the message this guy sends is pickpocket.
He's just gone through Rupert Court, so he should be popping out onto Rupert Street any moment now. Over to see if I can get that done.
Normally, the image he sees is time-lapse. But when he spots something suspicious, he switches to a live feed and records it. The video can then be used as evidence in court. Nigel can relay the same feed directly to police headquarters. If they dispatch officers to the scene, Nigel can guide them to their quarry at the touch of a button. Switching from camera to camera, zooming in from several blocks away, he tracks the suspect better than a bloodhound.
So we could have this guy from all different angles. The police could be moving in, he could be listening for sirens. We could be telling the police, well, he's just turned left. They can easily make the block and come up behind him, and he wouldn't even know. That is the best view we can give you at the moment. Over.
That's all, thank you.
Nigel's view will soon improve. As facial recognition technology comes online, his computers will store a database of the facial features of thousands of criminals. The instant one appears on camera, the computer will recognize him. The day will pass when a crook can masquerade as a face in the crowd. With such sharp eyes, Nigel's cameras must be discreet. And they are. London is now installing cameras with brains. Residents with windows in direct view of the lens can request the blackout point, known as a privacy area, and ask the camera to avert its eyes. The camera's microprocessor brain is so smart, it remembers not to peek. Once pointed at a requested privacy area, the camera remembers its exact location and digitally masks it from view. That's the challenge in the world's most watched city, striking a balance between safety and privacy.
WC Control. Hello, mate. Yeah. Okay. Right. You're right there, Ty? Yeah. Everything checked out. Cheers for that.
Nigel's shady character turns out to be a harmless shopper. Since the first cameras were installed in 2001, Nigel has seen a difference.
Since there was no cameras in London, street crime was very high. Yes, the police are doing a good job, but there's only a certain amount they can do. Since I've been here, we've reduced crime by a massive margin. People could be against it, people could be all for it. But to me, at the end of the day, we're here, we're stopping issues, we're stopping crime, and we're changing the face of this borough.
Throughout this megacity, on Earth and in the sky, eagle eyes keep a sharp lookout to keep life flowing through London. But on water, the greatest hazard isn't the traffic. It's what lies beneath. To steer clear of disaster, lookouts here must see in the dark.
Tail lifeboat. Man in the water.
These are lifesavers of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. Today, they race to answer an emergency call. Man overboard.
Report of a person in the water at HMS President.
Another Coast Guard is tail lifeboat. Yep, on our way. Keep your eyes open, chaps.
Based near the Tower of London, they're the busiest lifeboat crew in the whole country. Piloting hydrofoils traveling at 40 knots, they can reach any point on their watch within 15 minutes.
Okay, that's time official. I'm taking starboard side. 5, 4, have contact. We've recovered the casualty onto the boat. There's a male in his mid-40s, not breathing, no pulse. Commencing CPR, request ambulance, St Catherine's Pier, over.
But the ambulance is pointless. Today, just a drill. Tomorrow could be real. In the past year, they have saved more than 100 lives. They're a lifeline on the Thames, and the Thames is a lifeline to London. It flows for 346 kilometers from its source to the sea. Every year, these waters carry 7 tons of cargo for every man, woman and child in London. It's among the cleanest urban rivers in the world, but not the safest. Twice a day, with the ebb and flow of the tide, the Thames rises and falls up to 7 meters. As the current rushes by, the riverbed shifts, creating unseen obstacles to shipping. London adds its own obstacles. From the Thames Barrier to Tower Bridge lies an ocean of submerged debris. At the bridge itself, the shipping channel is so narrow, the ocean liner, the Queen Mary, couldn't turn around. For newcomers, navigating the Thames is no pleasure cruise. Each year, more than 13,000 vessels enter the Thames en route to London, and each is watched like a hawk. Captain John Stafford commands the control tower at Gravesend, the forward lookout for the Port of London Authority, PLA. The PLA oversees navigation along 150 kilometers of river, from west of London all the way to the mouth of the Thames. The daunting challenge facing Captain Stafford: protecting ships and lives in a waterway so dynamic, navigation charts are outdated the moment they're printed.
This is an Admiralty chart showing the Thames estuary. It is still a valid piece of navigational equipment, but here in the Port of London Authority, this is where we are today.
The Port Control Centre. It's manned 24 hours a day by a team of 40 human lookouts.
This part of the room here is where we monitor the progress of the vessels.
Using radar, radio and satellite navigation, they track every movement on the river. They use an electronic version of the old paper charts, but this chart is interactive. Traffic movement is updated every 9 seconds. To instantly distinguish scores of vessels, they employ high-tech tracking software called Automatic Identification of Ships, or AIS.
Each ship over 300 tons now transmits its identity and enables us to say definitely that is where the ship is. And that's being displayed also on the radar screen.
Pembroke Fisher, Southwest O's, inward bound, over.
Specified Pembroke Fisher, London VTS, Southwest O's.
If these two ships should overtake each other at some time in maybe the next half hour, we would then have no idea who was who. We rely on the AIS to identify the ships. The Pembroke Fisher is now identified, and the Arco Dyke is now identified.
AIS not only IDs the ships, it indicates size, draft and speed.
And here it's come up on the screen here, telling us the Pembroke Fisher, it's a tanker, 135 metres long, and it is doing 13.1 knots.
But on this river, it's what Stafford can't see that worries him.
A fairly average container ship will be carrying a draft of about 10 metres. That is 10 metres of steelwork underneath the level of the water. That is higher than most people's houses. The difference between the bottom of the hull of the ship and the riverbed will be between 0.9 of a metre and 1.4 of a metre, depending on flood or ebb. If that desk is the bottom of the ship, the floor is the river. The amount of safe water it has is the depth underneath this desk.
Shallow water isn't the only hazard. The Thames is littered with hundreds of obstructions, from sunken wrecks to blocks of concrete.
A large vessel going along at 10 or 15 knots is very difficult to stop. If it finds this lump of concrete, if it only so much as finds it by a few centimetres, it could put a great gash in the bottom of the ship.
Tonight, a stranger enters the Thames. The Artemis, bound for London. Like every vessel new to the river, she's required to take on a pilot.
Evening, VTS, the Artemis, we're ready to leave Woolwich Arsenal Pier now, inbound for Tower Bridge.
Unlike airplane pilots, ship pilots don't steer the vessel. Instead, they guide the captain through treacherous waters.
Just come a little bit more straight. The hardest thing is working with the current and understanding the way the river flows over the shallow water and under the bridges.
Richard Dockett is a pilot with the Port of London Authority. He has one of the best sets of eyes on a river in constant flux. Twice daily, as the tide floods and ebbs, the Thames rises and falls the height of a two-storey house.
There's very little rock on the base of the Thames, most of it's mud. And on the corners where the tide flows around the corner, on the opposite side, you tend to get a mud bank that builds up and moves into the river. This alters the flow of the river, so as you're going round a corner, the tide will push you one way or the other, which you have to compensate for as you're steering along.
Tonight, Dockett must compensate for more than tide. Dead ahead, Tower Bridge. His task, guide the captain through a gap no wider than a football pitch. For such a tricky maneuver, two sets of eyes are better than one. Like the river pilot, Charlie Harrison also choreographs the movement of tons of steel.
Tower Bridge Radio, Artemis.
Sally Barge Will, this is Tower Bridge Radio, over. Just cracking the bridge now, Gerald. A full lift is 86 degrees, not quite the 90 degrees, but that takes about 90 seconds to achieve that lift.
Each of the bridge's two decks weighs 1,000 tons. To raise them, energy is stored in 6 huge hydraulic accumulators, originally powered by steam, now by electricity. When the energy is released, it's open sesame.
Tower Bridge, good evening again. We're just round Wapping Nest now, approaching you at slow speed.
We'll be ready for you. Tower Bridge out.
Okay, thank you. Bridge ready.
On the Artemis, pilot Richard Dockett braces for the unexpected.
For 11 months of the year, nothing much will happen in the way of emergencies. But as I said, there is that one time, and in a couple of seconds, everything can suddenly change very quickly. And then suddenly you have to concentrate, focus, and very quickly decide what you're going to do and do it.
Tonight, concentration averts disaster. And the Artemis threads the eye of the needle.
Stand by, bridge crew, about to open road gates. Traffic is reminded to wait for a green signal before moving.
The experts make it look easy, but experts are few.
There's only 5 people at this moment licensed to raise Tower Bridge in the whole of the wide world, so it's quite an esteemed position really, and we're quite proud of it.
But on a river as complex as the Thames, even expert eyes have limited vision. The tower watches the ships. The pilots watch the river. But to keep traffic flowing safely, you need to look where human eyes can't see. Underwater. On the Thames, the worst hazards are out of sight. To penetrate the murky waters of this river, cutting-edge technology confronts risk head-on.
Running aground obviously is the worst-case scenario.
Nicola Clay doesn't crew a rescue boat, but she is a lifesaver. She's an environmental scientist for the Port of London Authority. She's always looking for trouble. Underwater obstructions that could doom a ship.
It's a very easy place to get rid of things. Lots and lots of shopping trolleys, lots of tyres, lots of debris.
Her observation post is one of 4 vessels operated by the Hydrographic Service to survey the ever-changing riverbed. Every decade, the entire river is surveyed and charts are updated. But the most dangerous stretches are rechecked every few weeks.
If we have a storm, for example, then we may actually have an accumulation of sediment in a certain area, which would then reduce the depths in that area.
She measures depth using the most advanced generation of sonar, a multi-beam swath system. Traditional sonar works by bouncing narrow sound waves off the riverbed back to the ship. The wave's speed and the time traveled produce a 2-dimensional view of the riverbed's depth at a single point.
The river is quite a muddy river, so you can't actually see the seabed. So it very much is a matter of relying on the instrumentation that you've got here, the pictures you get here.
And what pictures! This next-generation machine can send out 3,000 sonar beams per second on a swath more than 500 meters wide. Instead of a keyhole view of the riverbed in 2D, you get a full portrait, a 3-dimensional portrait.
And what you can see here is an actual picture of the seabed. So if you've got on this side, there's very little features there, so you're moving over a flat seabed, but over this side you've actually got features and what are probably sand ripples and sand waves. So this actually shows you an image of the bed that you're going over, and that's the depths, and you can, by putting the two together, you get a very good idea of what's going on beneath your vessel.
It's not a pretty picture. The sonar picks up a large irregular object right in the shipping channel. Clay's job was spotting it. Someone else has to remove it.
We have a salvage department who spend all day, every day, going out and, as well as fixing things, actually pulling debris and salvaging things like cars out of the river.
That's right, cars. You can hide something big in the murk of the Thames, and that spells big trouble.
If the hydrographic department finds something, it is vitally important that we know it immediately, and it is very important to the port that we remove it quickly.
What's happened is our hydrographic department have located an obstruction on the riverbed.
Kevin Ledbetter is a diving supervisor for the Port of London Authority.
So then we're asked to come along and identify it, and then with the help of the salvage craft, they'll recover it to the surface.
They have a narrow window of safety to dive, a brief period of slack water when the current calms down.
Have to make sure we're ready in time for the dive, because we only get about 25-30 minutes of slack water time on high water.
The obstruction lies 12 meters deep. To veteran diver Pete Semple, depth isn't the risk.
The dangerous aspect is just the unknown. Because the water is black, it's the things that you can't see, put the danger there.
Okay, comms check clear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6, 7, 8, loud and clear.
Okay, loud and clear, mate. Okay, ready when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready, go ahead and line and do a search.
Okay, start your search.
For a diver, it's an underwater version of Blind Man's Bluff, but this is no game. Down here, the risk of entanglement and drowning is so great, a rescue diver always stands by. On the riverbed, Semple takes hold of a 30-foot line attached to a sinker and stretches it till it's tight. Then he walks a circle with the line as the radius. If the line catches on anything, he gropes his way along it through the murk.
And hopefully whatever he snags will be the obstruction that's on the bottom.
Okay, I found it, kid.
Understood, you found it. What is it then, mate?
I just have a quick check. It seems
And then he'll call to the surface, say what he's found, what he thinks it is, and he will then ask for maybe a wire.
Okay, maybe you want a nylon strop.
And he'll just proceed then to strop it up, make sure it's tight, then he'll come to the surface and they'll lift it, and hopefully the obstruction will come to the surface.
A 3-meter lump of concrete, big enough to punch a hole in a barge and sink it. It's one of hundreds of hazards fished from the Thames each year.
It's not so bad at high tide, where there's a lot more water, but at low tide, a deeper drafted vessel going past that, it could cause it to haul it, or it could hit its propeller. So that's why we have to remove them from the bottom.
One alert sentinel, one less hazard. Sharp eyes keep this river of commerce flowing smoothly, but around the next bend, trouble looms. A logjam that could cripple this megacity. To untangle it will take unprecedented technology and the boldest of vision. Airlines have a term for biting off more than they can chew. It's called overbooking. But what happens when an airport beneath the world's busiest international airspace gets overbooked? Not with passengers, but planes.
We have 1,350 flights in and out of the airport every day. That's 500,000 a year.
To ease the crunch, London's Heathrow Airport will usher in a new generation of aircraft that carry more passengers. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the super jumbo Airbus A380. To accommodate the extra planes and the mob of passengers, Heathrow is adding the equivalent of an entire airport. It's one of the biggest construction sites in Europe. It will cost over £2.5 billion to complete. It encompasses a colossal terminal, 2 satellite buildings, and a soaring control tower to oversee the whole operation. When complete, it will accommodate 30 million people a year, nearly a 50% increase in passengers. They call it Terminal 5, or T5. With the addition of T5, Heathrow is projected to become the world's busiest airport.
Terminal 5 is going to be, I think, a gateway to London. It's going to be a gateway to the UK.
As the design director of T5, Mike Forrester commands an army. More than 4,000 workers swarm across an area the size of Hyde Park. But to him, it feels like a crowded backyard.
We've only got space for 1 day's storage of materials. So all materials have to be brought on only 1 day before they're actually incorporated into the works. I think what's great about Terminal 5 is we have an opportunity to build effectively a new airport all in one go.
Halfway to completion, the skeleton of the main terminal building is fleshing out.
You've got a very clear view of the main system, the actual shell, the cover, which really is, if you like, our big envelope wrapper which contains the whole of the processes of Terminal 5.
This is what co-architect Mike Davies sees in his mind's eye. A terminal so big it could hold 10 football pitches. An excavation so vast the dirt would fill a football stadium. And glass walls 10 times the height of a house. It's enough to make Big Ben look like an alarm clock.
The scale of this is pretty enormous. This is the end of one of the great rafters, 115-metre span, and the sheer scale of them is quite extraordinary. If you look at my size in relation to these, you know, one can sleep very comfortably in the hole in the beam. These are 156-metre spans, and it's 40 metres to the top. You can see the enormous ties which hold the centre section together, and in fact you can see how little material in fact holds the building up. There's not very much that's holding the building up at all. It's very slim, we're doing an awful lot with very little material, and it's always exciting to do that.
With the giant addition of T5 comes a welcome replacement. The most watched city in the world is getting an all-seeing eye in the sky. The new Heathrow Control Tower.
We need the new tower because it's twice as high, so we can literally see all of the stands at the airport. Right now, we can't even see into Terminal 5. Standing at 287 feet high, and this thing is going to be the most advanced ATC tower, certainly in Europe, if not the world. I mean, it's already been heralded as the next generation in airport design and technology.
In a megacity whose survival depends on surveillance, blind spots are fatal. But from Heathrow's new vantage, the vision will be crystal clear.
This is the world's busiest international airport, so here you're going to really feel the buzz and excitement of aviation.
The whole globe is connecting together, and it's nice that this building is going to be a place which connects people around the globe.
In this global city, life flows in three great streams. In all three dimensions, foresight will keep these rivers flowing.
All ships, this is London VTS.
All over this megacity, Big Brother is watching.
Stand by, bridge crew, about to open road gates.
Not to spy, but to protect.
I'm just going to stay over and see what he gets up to.
I'm on a close quarters tail lifeboat. On our way.
Today in London, it's not 1984, but the vision is 2020.